Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to Linux Action Show episode 440. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hello, Noah. We've got a big show for everybody today. Coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, Dustin Kirkland from Canonical joins us to tell us all about their new live patching service and how it differentiates from the other big players that have already announced their live patching service and have been around for a little while now. And then in the main segment of the show, we'll define what the heck a CRM is, why you would need it, and if open source actually even has a solution here. Turns out Noah, his day job is running his IT company, and he's been kicking the tires on a few different projects, and he'll give us his input there. Yeah, we're also going to talk a little DDoS and some other big news stories. We got great feedback, tons of things to cover there. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we've got?
The picks.
We've got the... You got it. Good job, Noah.
That's because you set it up. See, you set it up, and then I responded.
Yeah.
It's got that groove going.
This one comes in from, quote-unquote, anonymous, and I can understand why once I started looking. In fact, I should scroll down because, oh, no. Well, Imager, you may be giving away our anonymous. Yeah, Imager's a bastard. So anyways, Anonymous has sent in these photos that would seem to indicate that CVS runs Linux, at least the pharmacy section here. And here's what leads us to believe this, is if you start digging through the photos that were sent into the show, I'm not sure what's going on there. Here we go. If you start looking at these photos, Noah, this is the internet. It's new. And you look at the back, the door opens up, and that looks like a Zotac Linux PC right there. DVI coming out to he's got
the Ubuntu screenshot at the lower one, too, which really tells you that
man, I'm
Linux.
building up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is I was building. See, I was building the narrative as I was building. So
it might not be Ubuntu. It's a Zotac box with a lot of cables.
Before we get there, the way this thing's drive, it's got a DVI connection to which looks like an LCD screen with a USB plug coming out the back of it, plugged into the Zotac, and it's got a wireless antennas on it too, Ethernet as well. So I don't know if it's using those wireless antennas, but it's got them. And
a pink Cat5 cable.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I
would not choose pink.
I don't know. I think it stands out. It's got the sound hooked up to it, too. And then, we scroll down right there. And there it is. A nice Ubuntu screenshot. Running Unity at that. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to grok. I'm looking at those processes. I'm looking at this Evolution Calendar, Deja Dupe. All that stuff doesn't need to be running. You don't really even need Compiz running on a pharmacy vending machine display.
Really, it's what? It's scanning the barcode, and then it's probably that all the software is actually running inside of the web browser.
You can see here that the user account that it runs under is a kiosk, and Cat's running in the background taking 100K of RAM. Whatever's going on there, I don't know. But this pretty. It's got Firefox installed, Banff daemon installed. That's pretty good. Oh, and look at this. He even managed to find the source code of the kiosk app, which looks like it's a bunch of JavaScript.
Oh, jeez.
What?
Good thing we're putting this out on the stream.
You want me to end it right here? You want me to stop here?
No. I'm just saying, I'm sure that's exactly what they want, is all their internal URLs exposed to 300,000 people. But no, it's Intel Atom on an embedded computer, and they've got how much RAM does it say?
3.9 gigabytes, my friend.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, 3.9. Don't get it wrong.
Yeah. So this looks like something very similar to what we would install for a kiosk. And
1404 though.
Is that what I see? Graphics?
Yeah, it's got a GeForce. Well, probably to run that screen, a GeForce GT610 though, so don't get too excited. And an Intel Atom 1.8 gigahertz.
But the fact that it fits in that tiny little box, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Look at, oh my gosh. And he was able to get out to the internet by using the built-in Firefox browser. He was, look at him browsing Reddit.
I think if you scroll up, do you see where it says, do you see inside of the web browser, see how he has two tabs open and one is welcome to CVS? So I feel like that is actually where the software is running. It just runs like full screen.
Yeah, because it's just JavaScript, right? Yeah, so it's just running in a tab in Firefox, and he was able to open up a new tab once he hooked up a USB keyboard, and goes to Reddit for all the karma, then launches Solitaire. On this machine, he launched Solitaire.
God, I feel like I would not have this much time to I don't know. I feel like I would not be screwing around with that machine that long. I guess it's a public kiosk. Like, what are they going to say?
Yeah,
They're
and
like, I was just trying to figure out how to get my prescription filled.
Actually, I think there is a certain element to raising awareness about this kind of stuff too. I think there's something to that, and also there's something to pulling back the curtain and realizing that this is really just a combination of JavaScript, a Firefox web browser, and an Ubuntu Atom box back there. And that's and it's connected to the internet, and that's legitimately the world we live in now. And I wonder what the update frequency is on that particular.
But LTS every 5 years.
Yeah. You think they're installing all the LTS updates though? Let me see.
No. I think once every 5 years they probably update to the next version.
Yeah,
maybe.
Actually, you know what? To give them credit, the About box. Look at that. No, it says systems up to date. It's actually, they are keeping it up to date. Hey, you know what? Dude, if you're just running it in a web browser, if you're just doing JavaScript, who cares? Right? Who cares?
Exactly.
I'd say that's to update it. What Firefox isn't going to break. It's fine. It's fine. And I wonder if that means, I wonder if they run all of that pharmacy display stuff from a central CVS web server. It's probably not running locally on that box, right? He didn't show us that, but yeah.
No, it wouldn't be local because they wouldn't want to have to update 10,000 boxes. They wouldn't want to say like we need to change the price or this or that, or we're changing a new color scheme or whatever. They don't want to update 10,000 boxes.
You know what I would do? No, if I was CVS, I'd host it on DigitalOcean. You got it, buddy. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code. Here's the thing. All one word. Put it together like your Slurnick. Go set up your account, and then you apply it to your balance, and DigitalOcean gives you a $10 credit, and you can run a $5 rig for 2 months for free. That's their base rig with 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD. They're all SSDs. A terabyte of transfer, and a dedicated CPU. $5 a month's pretty great. You could get really a lot of nice things running on Linux. But if you go to DigitalOcean, I encourage you to check out the way their pricing structure works, because this is cooking with gas. You do this hourly thing. 3 cents an hour gets you 2 gigs of RAM, a 2-core processor, 40 gigabyte SSD, and 3 terabytes of transfer. The latest version of Ubuntu comes out, the latest version of when Fedora 25 ships and they get their images update, when there's a new version of FreeBSD, they just got the latest, when it released, they got FreeBSD on there. You know, I think this is a great way to play with these systems in a really performant environment. You really get to experience packages installing at incredible rates, things building at an intense, great speed, everything being out on the internet, so you don't have to worry about reconfiguring your firewall. You don't have to install a bunch of junk dependencies on your system. You just get something set up on DigitalOcean and you get going. And they have entire application stacks you can deploy, or you can build a system like Noah likes to do from the ground up. I strike the difference. So one of the things I often will do is I will check for a DigitalOcean tutorial for anything I'm going to do. We're going to talk about the CoW Linux vulnerability here in just a couple of minutes, and they already have it. They posted it 2 days ago. How to protect your server against the dirty CoW Linux vulnerability. How to create an intranet with OpenVPN on Ubuntu 16.04, or installing MongoDB on CentOS 7. Lots of really nice tutorials. So you can build it yourself, or you can take advantage of one of their application stacks, deploy it, and then use these tutorials to go even further. This is my approach. This is what I like to do. Is I like to experiment using DigitalOcean Droplet. I go deploy the open source thing that I'm going to do. I go install maybe an entire ready-to-go stack, something that's really simple, and I validate that it's okay, the product's worth my time. This is worth my energy and my time. And then, if it's really something I'm serious about, I will go back, sometimes following the tutorial, sometimes following a wiki post somewhere else, and I will reset it up on a system that I'm going to keep long term. And when you think about it in that context of the ability to experiment and then deploy in production, the pricing is nuts. And they got data centers all over the world, in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany, India. They have such a great interface to manage all of it, and a really nice API. The interface you're seeing on the screen right now is not fake. That's what their actual UI looks like, and you can deploy to multiple data centers, set up multiple droplets. You can import your SSH keys, manage your DNS, set up private networking, set up snapshots and backups, templates, transfer machines, droplets to other accounts, set up team accounts. There's so much you can do from this great interface with their great, straightforward API. And you can get started with all of it by using our promo code, Here's the Thing. All one word over at DigitalOcean. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Just apply Here's the Thing to your account, and you'll get the $10 credit. sometimes we have an app pick on the show where when Noah and I get connected for the morning, I'll say to him, dude, there's no way we haven't picked this app before. And usually that results in us looking around and searching, but you've already double checked. And my goodness, this is one that literally I use every single day on all of my computers for years now, years and years now. And if we've never mentioned this on the show, we have got to fix that wrong right now. It's f.lux.
And so basically, if you're not familiar with f.lux, basically what it does is they've done scientific studies and they found that the color temperature of your computer monitor very closely resembles 5500K, which is about the color temperature that you'd get outdoors in front of the sun. So during the day, between the hours of, let's say noon and 4 p.m., that makes a lot of sense. So when you're staring at your computer monitor, your body's natural circadian rhythm says it's daytime. It's time to be awake. It's time to be productive. The problem becomes when you get home at night and you want to sit down at your computer, or me, I get a 2 a.m. service call and I stumble off my bed over to my computer and I gotta log into this SSH and I hit the button to wake the computer up, and exactly all of a sudden this bright 5500K light is hitting me and my eyes are telling me it's daytime, and the rest of my body is like, it's 2 a.m. I want to sleep.
Yeah.
F.lux fixes that. Basically, it allows you to, after a specific time, adjust the color temperature of your display so that your body circadian rhythm is being told from all sides, including sight, hey, it's nighttime, it's time for bed. And I noticed the very first night I did this, I have a computer in my bedroom. It's on my desk, and I installed it on there one night. And I knew that Chris had this. I just didn't realize the extent to which it was available. And so I installed it, pretty easy install. And then I sat down that night to use my computer. I'm like, man, I'm like relaxed and sleepy now just from using the computer that way. And I thought, that's it. Now it's going on every computer. So every computer I own now has f.lux installed on it.
Wow. So I've sort of transitioned from f.lux, which I still like a lot. And if there's if there's a Mac in the studio or something, I'll have f.lux on this. That way all the screens match. Because if you ever have one screen that doesn't do this temperature shift, it stands out.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm really glad you can get this on the phone now. What I found to be more bulletproof for me on anything that's not Ubuntu, because f.lux always seems to work great for me on Ubuntu. And I can get xflux or whatever it's called. I can get that working on pretty much any Linux. And if you go to their download page and you look a little bit further down, they have xflux. This is just a command line, and again, no surprise. I drop down my Quake terminal, and I have a dedicated tab for xflux. I hit up arrow once. Of course you have a
dedicated tab on your drop-down Quake terminal for xflux.
Yeah,
of course you do.
And it's like really simple. It's like xflux-z, and then your zip code, and it automatically looks up your location of where your zip code's at, figures out where the sun is at, and sets the temperature. So it's really easy. So if you can't get f.lux working, check out xflux, or consider, and I know everybody that's probably watching screaming this at the screen right now, consider Redshift. Redshift does everything that Noah just said about f.lux, everything we love about it, but it is completely open source. So you can get it in and it's probably already in your repo. It's in most repos. And there is a GNOME shell extension that I use, surprise, on some of my machines, that integrates Redshift toggle into my user menu. So say if I want to override it, which I sometimes do if I'm looking at photos or I'm video editing, I don't want to have the color wrong, and I wanted to temporarily disable it. So it's really nice in GNOME 3 to have a checkbox to just turn it off.
Flux does allow you to, there's a little icon that runs in the app bar, and you can just hit pause and then.
Or if you have it in your dedicated Quake drop-down tab, you just Control-C, obviously, and you're fine. But or tell it to kill or something. But I have actually switched over to Redshift, and Redshift will put a little icon like in your status bar. Every now and then, Redshift is broken on me, but for the most part, it just, if you're on GNOME 3, one other thing is, it might not work by default unless you have location services enabled in GNOME 3, which I believe are disabled by default. So that's something to consider. You may have to turn on location services in GNOME. And there's other projects out there that actually do this for other desktops as well. And the Redshift does work on KDE, and there are Plasma desktop equivalents that talk to Redshift. So those Flux is sort of like the well-known one. Flux is also the one that's most common on, I believe, on Mac and Windows. I don't know for sure, but I gather that it is. And Redshift is probably well known in the community. So check out those tools for something that I really think does help. And you can get Redshift or something like it for your phone too. And so that way, if you have to turn on your phone in the middle of the night, it really makes a big difference. And my lady saw mine. I have it on mine, right? And so she's like, wow, that really is a lot nicer. And she went and got it turned on hers too because she noticed a big difference.
It makes a difference. And it sounds nitpicky until you actually do it. And then you're like, well, that did make a big difference.
Yeah. And I actually think it's possible. I've never tried it, but on my Android TV that I have at the rig, I have a Redshift, or I can't remember if it's Redshift. I have a nighttime colorizer that I think actually does it for the TV too, using Android TV. So if you really want to go all in, although that seems like a bad idea on the TV, but if you really want to go all in, you can actually get it on Android TV too, which seems crazy. No, this weekend I really wanted to show you something via my terminal. I did something, I banged it all out. It was super cool, a nice FFmpeg command. And I thought, man, Noah would love this. Can you think of anything that would facilitate sharing of a terminal session? Maybe something I could watch a little faster because you type slow, etc.
Actually, I can't, but Rakai can. So Rakai this week sent in our show spotlight, and that is, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Showterm Heroku app.
Oh, it's a Heroku app.
Showterm
is the app, and it runs on Heroku.
Yeah, okay. There you go. So, but basically what it is it is a live text terminal. So you can do screencasts of your terminal, but the catch is that the screencast is presented in text. So the viewer at any time can copy text
I can
out
copy
of the terminal.
pasta it. Yeah, that is nice.
Exactly. And you can copy that text right out of there, copy it into your own terminal so you could follow along. So definitely could be a kind of cool.
Oh, sorry, but did you mention you can speed it up too?
Yeah, so the rate at which it comes out can be sped up or slowed down. Yeah. I think this would be kind of a cool thing to use for a show episode. Next time we have a how-to where there's going to be a lot of commands, publishing this video, making that available to the audience, so they can just say, just copy. Right now, what we have to do is we have to have the video, and then we put all of the commands in the show notes so that people have a place they can copy and paste commands out of. This would kind of do both.
A couple other things that are neat about this. So if you want to use the app that's running on their Heroku's instance, they'll let you link directly to terminal show terms. So you could have, I could send you a link that you could watch on your own later. In your browser session. You can also embed them as an iframe, which that could be especially cool in the show notes. If you can embed it as an iframe, that would be really nice. The one thing I was wondering about, though, and I was just looking at I was trying to see if they say anything here, is it just looks like it's a start and stop recording. And, because you're going to typo a few times. It'd be nice not to have all your typos recorded. Yeah. So that would be one thing. And maybe there is a way to pause it. I just don't see it here. It's by it's like Noah was saying, showterm.herokuapp.com.
I don't think there's a way to pause it just based on the way that as soon as you stop the recording, it
generates the link.
Video. But what you could do, you could script everything ahead of time and then just run your script. And then obviously when the show term goes out, you could slow it down or speed it up because the speed is controlled at the end, not at the.
Yeah. So it looks like it's using a couple of cool technologies. Term.js, which is an awesome TTY.js script. Script, the long forgotten Unix tool for recording terminal sessions. TT Record, which is an upgrade to script, and then there's a tool for monitoring and hosting by Bugsnag. So it's kind of a cool combination of stuff. Showterm, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Before we get out of the spotlight altogether, I kind of have a double spotlight, and I wanted to just share a little love with the OpenStreetMap project. If you're anybody who considers ever de-Googlifying your life, I would encourage you not to underestimate the importance of maps. Not only that, but the ability to take something that's OpenStreetMap data from all over the world, where maybe some companies and some private companies don't really have an interest in investing, to places like my podunk town where only people that are locals really care about these little tiny little nuances. I think this is a super important project. OpenStreetMap is doing a funding drive for 2016, and they're about halfway there. And they don't have crazy ambitions either. So I feel like it's probably just worth a mention if you would like to help them out. And it is donate.openstreetmap.org, and I'll have a link in the show notes. And I think the OpenStreetMap Foundation is a super cool organization. Don't have any other affiliation with them, other than I did use some of the OpenStreetMap data while I was on the road from time to time, and I found a few things to be more accurate on it. And I love the idea of not relying on Apple or Google or Nokia or Navtech or whoever to supply our maps. And I like the idea that more open source software could be built with great accurate maps that
Exactly.
the foundations behind. So we'll have the link to that in the show notes, or go to donate.openstreetmap.org if you'd like to help them out. But Noah, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Hey, go to last.ting.com to support the show and get yourself a discount. Ting is mobile that makes sense. So instead of being a crazy duopoly that tries to squeeze you for every single penny, what they've done is they've rebuilt wireless in a way that is fundamentally simpler to understand. You just pay for what you use. They take your minutes, your messages, and your megabytes. They add them up. Whatever you use, that's what you pay. Each line, $6. You want 3 lines, you pay $6 for each line. There's no contract. There's no early termination fee. The devices are unlocked. You own them. It's all easy peasy. And if you go to last.ting.com, you can click on that how much would you save button. Punch in your numbers. Boop, 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 boop. Punch your numbers in and see if Ting would work great for you. Average line, $23 a month. That's for, for me, I've got 3 smartphones on my Ting account. It's usually under $40. It's really nice. You got some Wi-Fi at work or at home, it's no-brainer. And if you ever need to use customer service, they've got great customer service. They have CDMA and GSM services, which means even more devices you can bring. And if you bring a device and you go to last.ting.com, you get a $25 service credit. Remember I mentioned that the average monthly bill is $23? It'll pay for more than your first month. And they've got great tools for your device or in the web. All of that. And if you're going to go, even if you're not ready to switch to Ting yet, they have a great blog, last.ting.com, then click on the blog. This is something that's kind of interesting for me. I've got Sling TV, and I've noticed that PlayStation Vue seems to be getting some attention. This is a great way for those of us who have cut the cord, but every now and then want to tune into some live television, especially when big news events like elections are coming up. They've done a rundown of Sling TV and the PS Vue and which hardware devices support it and which ones don't. It's a really nice one, including other options to consider, DVRs, all that kind of stuff. So start by going to last.ting.com, and then if you're a cord cutter or you're considering it, check out their blog too. Tons of great tips there. And the other thing too, I don't know if I haven't mentioned it for a couple of weeks, but Ting's prices on data have gotten even better. This is absolutely outrageous. And if you go to ting.com or last.ting.com, you can find out more.
Look like this. Need more? It's just $10 a gig. That's what new customers pay. That's what current customers pay. It's simple. We like simple. See for yourself at ting.com/rates.
You know what, Noah? Actually, that's one thing to say, too, as a longtime Ting customer. I really like when they've rolled out improvements to the service, like dropping the data rate. I didn't have to call up and get a new contract or get a new agreement or get a new plan. I just inherited these new benefits as a customer.
Whether or not you were even paying attention.
Yeah, which is really nice because all of a sudden things just get cheaper. All right, well, let's talk about the news. This is a big story this week. Canonical has announced their Livepatch service, which is one part technology in your kernel, one part their live service that you have to create an account, in some cases pay for, and all parts necessary. A Livepatch is, in a sense, the ability to install updates into a running Linux kernel. Now, if you've heard about the big Internet of Things DDoS attack this week, or any of the kind of situations where you know the system has to remain in production, maybe it's a Netflix system, maybe it's your email server, the range is huge. There's so many Linux systems in production today that have to remain online, so people fail to patch them. So vendors have been rolling out Livepatch services for a while now. Red Hat and SUSE rolled theirs out earlier in the year, and we covered those. And now, last to the party is Canonical, but I think they might have the most interesting take, and so Dustin Kirkland stopped by on his way home from the airport to tell us about it. Dustin is joining us right now on his way home from the airport, and it really, if the announcement wasn't this big of a deal, it wouldn't be worth all of the trouble. But let's be honest, this is a huge story. So, Dustin, first of all, thanks for making the time to come on the Linux Action Show, even though you're on the way home from the airport right now. Welcome to the show.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about the big news. This is something that, I don't know, maybe Canonical isn't necessarily the first to do a live kernel patch, but this is done a little differently. So what is Livepatch, and why would I want to live patch my system?
We're certainly not the first, and I don't think we're claiming to be the first. But we're taking advantage of a new feature in the Linux kernel. It showed up in about 4.1. Ubuntu 16.04, which we released back in April, ships with Ubuntu with Linux 4.4, which is it's really the first of any of the enterprise Linux distributions to ship with a for anything kernel. And so it's really the first opportunity there is to live patch a kernel using purely upstream functionality.
Okay.
As I said, we're not the first. You've got ksplice from Oracle. You've got kpatch from Red Hat and kgraft from SUSE. But all three of those are using out-of-tree technology. What we're using is the pure live patch functionality that's in the Linux upstream kernel.
Now, that seems to be the big differentiator here. Not only that, but there's a couple other things that I think are pretty special, and I want to get to them for a moment. But let's take a moment and talk about this, because it seems like what Canonical is going to reap are the benefits of other companies working on the upstream stuff. So, for example, isn't IBM working on some architectures that aren't yet supported by this upstream live patching, but will soon be, and you guys will just reap those benefits?
Yeah, well, I mean, we work with the IBM team, but it's largely IBM's kernel developers who maintain the System 390X, the IBM mainframe port, as well as the Power 8 Power Architecture port. And I want to make it clear: there's two very important pieces to live patch. The first piece is the ever important plumbing that has to be in the Linux kernel that allows you to dynamically load a kernel module that modifies running code. That's
how it works,
and that's the piece. Yeah, that's the piece that we're leaning on the upstream community that has gone in to the kernel. The second piece is the stream of patches. So that piece has been there for months and months, and very few people said anything about it. We certainly didn't make any noise about it. We've been working on this in the background, but without an actual live patch to apply, it's just stub code is dead code.
Sure.
So the announcement this week is that we've created a stream of live patches. So our kernel team, we've got people on the ground working on this. When a CVE, a kernel vulnerability, security vulnerability is released, our team looks at it and triages it and determines its severity. For the high and critical ones, that snaps into action our kernel team that starts working on making that patch, that fix to that vulnerability, into a live patch. And they do that in parallel. There's another part of the team that takes that patch, applies it to the Ubuntu kernel, and builds and tests and QAs and releases a full kernel, as we always have for 12 years. By the way, today's the 12th birthday of Ubuntu. Maybe we should...
Happy birthday, Ubuntu. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Warthog released 2004 today.
Wow.
But yeah, we've been releasing kernels, updated kernels with bug fixes and security fixes for years, and we will continue to do that. Those will roll up all of the changes and fixes that go in. But with the live patches, it's a very specially crafted dynamic kernel module, a .ko, that changes running code. There's some limitations to what it can do, but it's pretty amazing what it can do. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm on my way home from the airport, and while in flight at 45,000 feet, I patched my kernel on my laptop over an airplane Wi-Fi connection and erased a really nasty vulnerability. A local user. Escalation.
I mean, just to be clear here, we're not talking about replacing the traditional patch methodology, but what we are actually talking about is the ability to patch your running kernel in production and solve a potential real security issue that's in the wild. And this is an obvious thing that the enterprise needs.
Without a reboot, that's the killer bit, right?
Yes.
You don't have to reboot to patch that. We're not selling this as I'm going to be clear. We're not selling this as never reboot again, but rather it's reboot when it's convenient, right? It wasn't convenient for me to reboot my laptop on the plane, but I wanted to patch that vulnerability, and so I was able to do that, and the same could be said for your rack of servers. It's Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. You want to patch the vulnerability, but you don't want to reboot your data center until your reboot window.
Dustin, let me ask you, how does Canonical have the confidence to send out patches to everyone's running kernels and fix them in real time. You're essentially in a very large picture way, Canonical will be replacing running code in real time. And so how does that work? How is that tested? And if you could you also maybe talk a little bit about the service end where there's actually an account that's created and there's signing that happens?
Sure, absolutely. So there's quite a bit of work that happens on the back end. The service itself is it's a tremendous effort. There's a great team at Canonical, the kernel team, the land distro team that work on this and collaborate on this, and they've built the mechanisms that take a patch, and if you've ever ported a patch from one version of some software to another, be it kernel or user space, it's not an easy thing to do, and there's a lot of things that you have to get right. There's some tools that can help, but it's going to be done manually, right? And then we have infrastructure that builds that patch into a live patch, and then recompiles it against every single kernel that we've released against 1604, and that's a number that just grows. We release a new kernel every 3 weeks in Ubuntu, and every time we generate a live patch from now on, we've got to build that live patch against all of the old 1604 kernels, because someone could be on any of those at any time, right? Just depending on the last time they rebooted. So it's a growing list. It's a tremendous amount of work and infrastructure to put that together. When we do create those live patches, we then put them through a CI/CD test framework, a regression testing. So we do as much automated testing we can in virtual machines and on physical hardware, and try to assure as much stability and quality as possible. And so far, the team's done a great job. I've been running this in beta for 9 months now, and I haven't hit a problem that crashed.
Wow, 9 months. Jeez, holy smokes. That's interesting. So it sounds like it's something that you guys have been working on pretty diligently for a long time behind the scenes.
Absolutely. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that's gone into this, and we're was creation of years worth of
interesting. I saw Popey mention it on Twitter that he'd been running it for a while. So really, Dustin, could we just talk about for a little bit the aspect that might be most applicable to just average users that are watching this particular show? I understand there's a free element to this and there's a pay element to it, and it's been funny to watch people's reaction. Like, what? Only 3 machines for free? How can this be? Why is that? How does all of this work? And maybe fill in some of the details there.
Yeah, sure. So I've seen some of the same feedback. I'm sure you have, Chris. It really comes back to how much time and effort and people we've invested in this feature, and it is something that we're quite proud of. But we're also looking to use this to help showcase what Ubuntu Advantage, our optional support service, is for Ubuntu. We're not taking anything away from anyone who's ever used Ubuntu. Download, upgrade, reboot your Ubuntu machine as much as you want. If you don't want to pay for it, or if you go beyond your 3 free machines, you've certainly got that at your disposal. But for the enterprise user, for the user who's using this at scale, it's part of our Ubuntu Advantage support offering. We have 3 levels of Ubuntu Advantage: Essential, Standard, and Advanced, that start at $150, $750, and $1,500 per year. So even at the lowest end, Ubuntu Advantage Essential at $150 a year, that's less than 50 cents a day. That's $12 a month, basically.
Right.
That's less than I pay for Netflix, in fact.
And anybody that's making money on a server instance running Ubuntu would be absolutely thrilled to pay something like that. Dustin, though, could you talk a little bit about the early rollout that will happen for free users and how that sort of is a pre-screen to anything that might be disastrous?
Yeah, exactly. So I was hoping to get to that when you were asking about the testing. So we do as much testing as we can behind the scenes, with timing in mind. We know that some of these patches we've got to get out as quickly as possible. So we have a regular set of tests things we run internally before we decide we're ready to roll one of these out. And the first step of the rollout process is it's a pretty classic canary testing methodology. If you don't know what canary testing is, it's the same concept that's built around the canary in the coal mine, right? You send in a canary, make sure there's enough oxygen that the canary survives and comes back out. And if not, then you might not want to send your team of coal miners into the coal mine just yet, right? And so that's sort of how the canary testing with the Livepatch works. We'll take a very tiny percentage of the free users, the community users of the Livepatch mechanism, and we'll roll that out to a tiny percentage, and then we'll check back, or those Livepatch daemons will check back in with the service and report that the Livepatch either applied successfully or failed to apply, and then we'll wait a bit of time to make sure that those machines stay up, right?
Yeah.
If those checks fail, if a number of those modules failed to load, or some number of those machines failed to respond in a timely fashion, then we'll spring into action a response where we'll take a look at those results, and our kernel team will investigate a bit closer into what's going on.
Yeah.
After that first pass, we'll do that a second time at a slightly larger percentage. So I don't know what the numbers are, but let's imagine it's 1%, 10%, and then everyone.
But I guess the takeaway message is, if I'm an enterprise customer and I'm paying at a certain level, I can sort of rest assured that by the time these live patches come down, they've been tested not only in the continuous integration testing system, but also probably amongst a subset of a large scale of users.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, Ubuntu users are so incredibly diverse: desktops, laptops, the various versions of the kernel that they might be running, from very old, haven't rebooted in months, to very new, just rebooted 10 minutes ago, and all of that feeds into that what amounts to a big data analytics framework that allows us to have extreme confidence and a very safe mechanism to detect when something might go wrong. You're absolutely right. So it's part of the social contract. It's not uncommon for Google to do this for their enterprise apps.
This is how Android updates work. Absolutely. Yep. Good parallel there. I guess my last question for you, Dustin, really comes down to the future. And I know anything you say is sort of maybe your opinion or whatnot, but if I am a 1604 user today, do I have a good guarantee that when the next LTS of Ubuntu ships out, that within time a live patch service will also be made available for the next LTS? Because I noticed 1604 is supported, but 1610 not supported.
Right. So 1610 is not supported at this time. The reality is that the vast majority of Ubuntu users, and especially Ubuntu Advantage commercial customers, are running 1604. Period. I love 1610. It's on my laptop, but 1604 is where the critical mass is right now. We are considering, and we are looking at a couple of expansions to the service. We are looking at the 1610 kernel as well. Particularly in its HWE, the hardware enablement stack. We run that kernel for some customers in public clouds or on hardware that they need that newer kernel. It's currently under evaluation. I mean, we're 3 days into the public GA. The response has been tremendous. We're seeing an outstanding response of registrations. As we get those requests, send those requests over to us on Twitter or by email. If 1610 is a deal breaker for you and you need hardware or you need live patch for 1610, let us know. We need to hear those voices. It's so much work to do it that we want to make sure that we're putting that behind the right arrows.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Dustin, is there anything else you think the audience should know about the new live patch service? If it's something to go look out or anything like that, look up?
Yeah, the one other thing I was going to mention, you asked about the next LTS. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We certainly plan on supporting live patch for the LTSs, so 1804 as well. We can't do much for 1404 because that kernel mechanism is not present in 1404.
Yeah.
Exactly. We need at least a port 1 kernel. No, Chris, but thank you very much. I'm glad to be able to speak with you and connect with your users and listeners.
Well, Dustin, it was great to chat with you, and I've noticed your name on a lot of the cool stuff coming out of Canonical recently, so I'd love to have the opportunity to chat in the future, and thanks for making the time available even while returning from the airport, man. I really appreciate it. That was really cool, and this is undoubtedly a huge initiative for Canonical. So I want to make it clear what they're talking about doing here is a service that will live patch a running kernel with fixes. In some cases, you will not have to reboot to have the fix loaded. It'll replace code in memory using the kernel module itself. And there will be some sets of patches that you will still have to restart for the fix to actually take effect. Think about that. That's a massive, massive commitment Canonical is making to their customers, because these are primarily going to be applicable to enterprise customers. But one of the things they've done a little differently here is they do make a free service available for 3 people, or for 3 computers. So you could go enable 3 of your computers for free, Noah. One could be a droplet, one could be a laptop. And then these could be systems you wouldn't have to worry about rebooting. One of the things that Dustin didn't really get into, but I thought maybe we could talk about here is, so the Canonical service is free for 3 computers, and then $150 a node a year after that. And that includes, that's the essential Ubuntu Advantage. So you're getting the support and patches for $150 a year. To put it in comparison, if you want to use the Red Hat Enterprise version of their live kernel patching, you have to get an Oracle Premier Support license for that instance of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is $2,300. You also have to have a Red Hat Enterprise subscription to begin with, which is what?
$300.
$1,300? No, because you have to have the Red Hat Linux. You have to have Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server Premium subscription to get live kernel patching. Okay. So it's $1,300 for the premium subscription, and then you need the Oracle Linux Premier Support license, because they're the ones that wrote the code, which is $2,300. So this is my rough understanding. So that's a huge amount. And if you want to do it on SUSE, it's available for SUSE Linux Enterprise 12 priority support subscription, which is $1,500 a node a year. And all of these, by the way, are per server, all these costs.
Sure.
It's quite a bit of money. So $150 for Ubuntu Advantage plus 3 machines are free. This is, by this definition, this is the cheapest method to do these live patches, unless you just used it yourself. I mean, this is kernel code, so maybe that's possible.
The thing is, to me, the cost is actually pretty much irrelevant. I think that, and you called this in the interview, if you're a business and you rely on your server to keep your business running, $1,200, $2,000, $5,000, it's a drop in the hat to make sure that server, is up and running. The thing that Canonical just really freaking nailed is they're charging enough that they will be able to make some money off of it, but really, I think what that charge is doing, that cost is adding value. People are recognizing that there's value there, because too often in the open source community, we get into this habit of expecting things completely at zero cost, and that's just not the way that the world works. And so
I agree.
The dollar amount doesn't necessarily matter to me, but the fact that they're letting you do 3 computers for free,
that's where I disagree. I think you are absolutely right in like the enterprise context, and a lot of really anywhere where you're running Red Hat Enterprise server. I think you're probably right. That price is not quite as relevant. However, if you look at the success that Ubuntu has had on the cloud, it is a rash that is across the entire cloud, whereas Red Hat, it'd be kind of a joke to say I'm going to go deploy a SUSE Linux Enterprise server on a VPS. I mean, not many people are doing that. Not many people are deploying Red Hat Enterprise server either. They might be deploying CentOS for sure, but not many of them are deploying Red Hat Enterprise Linux on something like a Linode or something. I mean, it's just not as common. And whereas Ubuntu is so much more common. Or look at Amazon Web Services again, where those enterprise distros do exist, but yet again, Ubuntu, massively larger percentage. I think it's something like in the 73% share on AWS or something like that. I think part of that is cost. I think another part of it has been accessibility to people that are creating the things that are running on these servers. Exactly. And because maybe cost doesn't matter on the server as much, But I think what Canonical's going for with these free 3 machines is they're going for VPSs and laptops and desktops. Because not only does that make it accessible to a different class of user who might just be getting something started up. Like I could pick, you know what, I could pick 3 droplets and be good with those 3 droplets and the other one's rebooting. So that's actually doable for me. But on top of that, it widens their test base because everyone that's a free user of this, even on the desktop, if you're just somebody who doesn't like to reboot your desktop but you want to stay secure, you become part of the Canary service from time to time, and you make it a better product for the people that are paying. So I actually think this is super clever. And then I think the biggest takeaway from this is what I really like is they're using upstream code that's already in kernel Linux kernel 4.4 and up. And I think that's the brilliant part because then they can focus on so much of the other stuff, the services, the interface, the creating the business relationships, and they don't have to be inventing this code to make this possible. So that seems like the really nice move because already they have folks like IBM working on additional platforms like Power and ARM.
Power 8, yeah. To clarify, I wasn't necessarily saying that it doesn't affect things one way or the other. It just doesn't affect my my perception if it's a good idea or a bad idea. The cost is not relevant in that, is not factored into that. I think that the fact that they are offering a couple free machines really speaks to their good nature towards the community, and then the fact that they are charging a set dollar amount, above that, even if it is drastically reduced than what you would get from their competition, I think that speaks to their good business sense.
Yeah, I still think it's always worth looking at any of these kinds of things with a certain amount of skepticism. So like they're publishing the source code for the Livepatch modules. The back end stuff, that's their own commercial product, they say. They're not publishing that. So that's something else to consider. The levers they're pulling in the kernel, that's upstream code, but the stuff they're using to pull those levers, not necessarily open source. So that's stuff to look into. It's always worth looking at everybody's version of this. And of course, if you're already on Red Hat Enterprise Linux or SUSE, there's already a solution for you. This doesn't really apply. But I do think this is fascinating I could just picture the prototypical Ubuntu workstation that's a LTS workstation because it's getting used on a shop floor or it's getting used by a developer that never wants to reboot. I see value in this even for the desktop. I think it's great bringing it down below thousands of dollars. So I think it's a pretty good hit all around. It sounds like they've been working on it internally for quite a while as well. And the level of commitment they're taking to not breaking your production system is huge for Canonical as a company. I think this is I think that maybe from a historical standpoint, this is one of the biggest commitments they've ever made to the enterprise ever.
Exactly.
So that's interesting too, and it's up there with the big steps that companies like SUSE, like Red Hat, like Oracle, the kind of commitments that they make at that really high level of we know your S is on the line, and yes, we are willing to make the service available to you.
Exactly.
That's a big step. So, all right, before we get out of the news, there's two other big stories we should really touch on. It's really kind of been a crazy week. You've probably heard about the most serious Linux privilege escalation bug ever. That it's under active exploit. That's how ours wrote it. This is a vulnerability that's been around for a long time, and it's also been called the CoW vulnerability because it actually specifically relates to copy on write. I'm going to. I actually have I have broken it all down in the show notes, so I have sourced this from probably. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different sites. So instead of going through one site, I thought maybe we'd go through all of them and kind of just break it down because it is getting there's not really much to show you there, is there? No, there's not. Because it's getting a lot of press coverage. It's getting a lot of attention as this is a vulnerability that's been around for a long time, and it comes on the heels of a report done by Google that shows the average Linux vulnerability in the kernel exists out in the wild for 5 years. We covered that last week. And so the timing of this super sucks because this one's been around for 9. Hey, that makes us look great. And so the vulnerability it's a race condition that was found in the way Linux memory handles a deduplication technique called copy on write. That's where CoW comes from. Untrusted users can exploit it to gain highly privileged write access to the write memory mappings that would normally have been read-only to them. So the bug is marked as a high priority, and it gets its name from the copy on write mechanism in the Linux kernel, which is so broken that in any application or any malicious program can tamper with the read-only root-owned executable files and set UID executables. The race condition was found in a way that the memory subsystem handled these copy on write breakages of private read-only memory mappings. An unprivileged local user could use this flaw to gain write access, which would otherwise be restricted to them, and increase their privileges on the system. The dirty cow vulnerability has been present in the kernel since version 2.6.22 in 2007, and is believed to also be present in Android. Yeah, that's right, everybody. And Red Hat's already got their posts up about it. We got a couple of those. CVE 2016 5195 is the one you want to look up for details on it. And we have also a link to the wiki for Dirty Cow, and as well as, in case you really want to play with it, we have proof of concept code linked in the show notes as well. And this one's getting a lot of attention. Have you heard the buzz? Have you seen some of the headlines about it?
Yeah. The other thing is, too, is I can't help but bring this up, but 2 years ago at Linux Fest Northwest, when we were in the middle of troubleshooting, when we were trying to get Alan to Linux, and Alan wasn't Linuxing very well, the error that we eventually ran into was could not load bootloader because could not find canonical path cow. And so, we had no idea what it was.
Now
and
you
so
know.
we took a picture of it and tweeted, we tweeted Popey, and we're like, and then he gave us some smart aleck response about using Google. So then Q5 was like, no, it's okay. We just went into the barn and grepped, frog and got, and then it turned.
Yeah,
into a
that
big
was
joke.
funny. I do remember.
But we
all
never
that.
did find out what cow was. Now we know.
Now you know.
So that's what stands out.
Yeah, this isn't like copy on and write like your file system. Although maybe it's kind of similar, but this is for data and RAM. And so it's kind of funny covering this on the heels of the last story. This is really the problem: is none of these devices are getting patched. People are not patching their S, and I think a big part of it for server systems has been the reboot problem, and so I think live patching helps that a little bit. We need something like that everywhere. Essentially, it needs to be common industry practice that you do not deploy an internet connected operating system without a solid way to do signed, secure updates. That just because from a brand perspective, this is going to start. If your IP camera has become known as the devices that contributed to the DDoS attack over the weekend, they're probably going to get rated a little bit shittier on Amazon. They're probably going to get sold a little bit less. I mean, it's going to start affecting people's brands at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sucks that there's still machines out there running Linux kernel 2 something. That should be a runs Linux. Somebody, if you got a machine, an embedded machine or something like that, or a desktop, or God forbid, an internet-connected server, running an old version, let's say
Like a refrigerator?
something below, what's your kernel version on your fridge?
I don't, probably something to something, I'm sure. Because it was made, the thing was made in 2010. And it has, I know for a fact they haven't updated it since then. So whatever kernel was, and that it wasn't even shipping with the newest kernel in 2010. It was probably something before that. And kernel 3 something came out in 2012. So yeah, I'm guessing 2.6, 2.7, something like that would be my guess.
Well, no, that'd be funny. That'd be funny. So speaking of those devices and the DDoS, this was a thing this weekend. The Internet of Things believed to be a target of a massive DDoS attack. Websites, including PayPal, Reddit, Amazon, Spotify, Twitter, and others were offline. Man, you must have just been suffering there, Noah. Just suffering.
Nope. Because I don't have any Internet of Things. All my stuff is on the LAN only and doesn't talk out to the internet. And I have to use a tunnel to get to that stuff from the outside, which is what I keep telling you people over and over and over and over and over again is don't rely on the cloud. Don't put random things on the internet on your network. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. And I saw that what actually kind of tipped me off to this was I saw a post on social media about a gentleman he couldn't figure out why he couldn't shut his lights off in one of his rooms in his house. He was using one of these smartphone controlled light things that you bought at Lowe's or whatever. And turns out it was some sort of service that was proxying that connection from his from the app, and then it goes up to some magic server and some magic script and some cloud-based thing comes down to his cloud-based lights and turns his light on and off. And somewhere in there, this DNS attack had rendered that service inoperable for a short period of time, and so he wasn't able to turn his lights off. And that is the kind of thing that I'm like, this is totally stupid. There is no reason when I send a command from my smartphone when I'm at home that needs to ever leave my network. In fact, nothing outside of my network should even be aware that I'm sending that command. It should all be local. I
gotta dig into this. Because I guess in Lady Jupiter I have successfully gone offline because I was boondocking Friday, which is our VR term for essentially dry camping with every running off battery, not hooked up to anything, and so I was running offline pretty much all day Friday, and I didn't notice that there was any outages because I was taking the day off from the internet and working locally. But my rough understanding is essentially the DYN folks, the dynamic DNS guys, were getting attacked. And a bunch of S just fell apart from there. I'm sure I'll dig into it more throughout the week, but
Yeah, my brief understanding, and again, I haven't dug into it super deep, but my understanding is, based on the interwebs, is that there are a lot of people, there are some hacktivist groups that were upset about Julian Assange's internet getting cut off, and so they launched DDoS attacks on DNS servers inside of the US. Now, I think it must extend beyond just dynamic DNS, because I feel like Spotify, Netflix, they wouldn't be relying on dynamic DNS for their services.
I think DYN also offers a host of other services too that are like general DNS management and whatnot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
This particular issue is something we have covered extensively now for a couple of years on TechSnap. Even just in the last couple of weeks, all of this, including also DNS amplification attacks and NTP amplification attacks. All of this is becoming a big problem, and we've been talking about it on TechSnap. So if this kind of stuff pushes your buttons and you want to know more, definitely go tune into that over at Jupiter Broadcasting. And I'm going to read more about this because you're right. This was an emphatic underscore of the point you make a lot on this show, is that if you are on your own LAN and you have all of your stuff offline, it doesn't matter what the cloud's doing, because the cloud, after all, is just other people's computers, right? Exactly. So you never know when other people's computers are going to be screwed up, or what kind of stupid decisions they're going to make, or when they're going to piss somebody off. And I totally missed this outage, I think, because it didn't really affect me. If I was here working at the studio, I probably would have been more aware of it. But yeah. Interesting. Well, we have links to everything we talked about, including links from Dustin on the Livepatch stuff, lots of sourced information on the CoW vulnerability, and I have a feeling that'll also be covered in TechSnap, as well as some interesting coverage on this whole Internet of Things DDoS attack. Whoa, what's the matter over there, Brown Bear? What is it?
Sorry, no.
Well, what are you looking at?
There's been this fly the entire episode, and it has been flying all around, and now it's like, I think it thinks my lights are outdoors, and it's like whacking violently against the light. I'm sorry.
You know what? Let's go have this guy explain to us what a CRM is. One of the things I love about Noah's day job is it is like a lab for our experimentation right here on the show, and sometimes we really get to reap the benefits. He went out and dug into something. We're about to get into that, and I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. It is a topic that I have avoided, not just personally, not just a little bit, on a professional level. When the CRM was getting rolled out at a client, that Chris let somebody else handle that particular problem. So he had other things to worry about, important things. I'll go set up your SQL database, but I don't want to know about your CRM. But Noah managed to actually pique my interest, and it's with an open source project. So I'm going to tell you all about that. But first, we got to thank the sponsor that makes this segment possible, and that is Linux Academy. In fact, if you go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged, you get to support this show and sign up for a 7-day free trial. Oh, here we go.
New to the world of Linux,
all right.
Azure, and AWS,
give it to me.
OpenStack, and DevOps.
Okay.
A sharp skill set is an absolute necessity to succeed. Meet Linux Academy, an online Linux and cloud training platform that uses self-paced video courses and hands-on labs to give you real-world experience for a wide range of skills. Train for your certification, learn the latest DevOps tools, and grow your skill set to do better work. Linux Academy is not just a video library. Our scenario-based server labs and quiz system allow you to learn hands-on. We also have full-time human instructors who answer questions and help you earn that certification or promotion at work.
Listen, YouTube, I know I hit that mute button. YouTube, because I wanted to tell the people all those things, but you did a good job anyways. You did. I really did legitimately hit that mute button. It's cool, though. It's cool because you know what they don't say there? They don't tell you about that 7-day free trial, and they don't tell you about what I think is maybe one of the biggest deals ever, because you go over to Linux Academy, you get into some of the courseware, you realize it's the best stuff on the subject, and if you're like me and you're just even kind of passionate about this topic, you start just eating it up. Nom, 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 nom. And you get a lot of really good stuff done. The problem was it's hard to brag about it, either to your employer, to maybe a potential client, or even just to friends and family. Honestly, you sometimes want to be able to show off your accomplishments. And that's why I think it's brilliant they've recently launched the Linux Academy public profiles. That's a great way when you're trying to get a gig, or if you're getting education as part of your employment. It's also very important. They have some really great stuff, including Learning Paths if you're going to go get some certs, where instructors have put together specific tracks for you. They have the course scheduler for those of us that don't have a lot of free time, and those new iOS and Android apps that help you study on the go, as well as their downloadable content and comprehensive study guides for those of you that like the things offline, like Mr. Kernel Linux. They got you covered too. linuxacademy.com/unplug. That's where you go to support this show. And you could go watch that video too if you didn't get a sense. But YouTube, they got me covered. Not only did I mute it, but the play bar didn't show any progress. Like, the whole thing just went totally crazy. So that's why we're going to bring it. We're going to center ourselves, and we're going to learn about an open source CRM.
As the year winds down, Altispeed work is slowing down for me. This is always kind of a slow time of the year, and I very much believe in maximizing my time. And so what I try to do towards the end of the year is set aside some time to work on Altispeed rather than in Altispeed. What I mean by that is, rather than taking time to do the day-to-day tasks that actually bring us in revenue, I try to take some time to take a step back and say, how are we doing overall as a company? Where are areas that we can improve in our efficiency and our effectiveness? And how can we overall grow as a company? The last couple months, I've been working on trying to expand Altispeed outside of Grand Forks, as well as expand our customer base inside of Grand Forks. But of course, I have enough on my plate already, so that's going to need to be delegated to a person or group of other people. I still need to maintain a picture of what my company is doing at all times. Call me a control freak, but I like to know. And so I needed a software solution that was, of course, going to be Linux compatible, preferably open source, that was going to allow me to essentially snapshot my company and help me track this growth. That way we can more effectively make plans and, of course, properly allocate financial resources. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email from somebody that was trying to do the exact same thing, and I suggested to him Zermo CRM, or Customer Relationship Management. Basically, it's a software to help manage your customers. Apparently, there was some confusion in the name, and we followed it up with the feedback, which Chris was very excited to do. And after that, we didn't really hear anything from it, and so I started to wonder, maybe interest kind of died. So I decided this week, I'm going to take some time to show you exactly what Zermo is, exactly what it can do, and exactly how we here at Altispeed are using an all open source solution powered by Linux to grow our business. Now, before we dive into exactly what Zermo is, we need to understand what a CRM is and what it's for. Put very simply, a CRM is basically to manage your customers. It is a software package that manages customers. We can keep track of our customers so we know who they are. We can keep track of contacts and the various projects and tasks that are going on with those customers. Now, I researched a bunch of CRMs. I took a look at Sugar CRM. I took a look at Zermo CRM. I even looked at CRM solutions that weren't even really CRM solutions, but I thought maybe I could shoehorn them into fitting for me, and hands down, above all, Zermo comes out ahead. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about when we talk about getting to using Zermo. This is not a how-to specifically. It's more of a review or an in-depth dive of what we're doing with Zermo. Nonetheless, I want to give you the basic tools you'll need if you decide that you want to implement this. So the first thing that we need to talk about is how we can get it installed. Now, you know me, I'm no fan of magic scripts. However, in this particular instance, because I was just trying Zermo out and it wasn't really something, at least initially, that was going to go into production, I had to start with something that was easy and then later went back and actually built it from scratch. The easiest way to get Zermo running is something that might be a little different than what you might be used to. There is a service called Bitnami, and Bitnami, if you're not familiar with it, basically provides installation scripts, if you will, and I can choose an application and I can demo it right here in the browser. I can download a container, or I can download just a little installer script that will basically let me install it right onto the computer. And that's really helpful if you want to do it in something like DigitalOcean. Now, I opted to go a slightly different route this time. I wanted to try out the new Google Services, which is basically a Google Compute instance that has that ties in with Bitnami to provide those application installers right there in the Google services. So it's kind of like DigitalOcean's one-click install, except it's for Bitnami rather than the one-click installs. And since Zermo was already available on Bitnami, I decided to go that route, and that's how I was going to demo it. So that's where this is being hosted today for the demo. The actual production database that we're going to use for Altispeed is going to be obviously hosted at DigitalOcean, and there will be no magic scripts. Noah compiled, well, not compiled, but Noah installed and configured that by hand because I need to know how it works, so when it breaks, I can fix it. So let's dive into exactly what Zermo is. I have a demo set up at demo.jupiterbroadcasting.org, and we are going to log in. And this is what we get to. It's a very well-designed UI. You notice there aren't a ton of buttons and options. I basically have my dashboard. The concept of a dashboard is something I really like. I love the idea of going to a website and having an overview of what my company is doing right there before I even have to dive into anything. It's kind of like what I appreciate about the Ting dashboard or the DigitalOcean dashboard. I can see what all my servers or all my phones are doing. Now I have an idea. I have a snapshot of what my company is doing basically in real time. You notice right at the front here is a calendar, a list of reminders. And prior to this, we actually at Altispeed did not have any sort of calendaring solution. We have a scheduling solution that we use to schedule service calls, but I could either block time off if I wanted to go have lunch or I had a meeting or something like that, or I could schedule actual service calls, but it wasn't very granular in that I couldn't say, I want to go to the Linux Fest Northwest, and that's, obviously a business event, and then, other people could see that and know where I am and what's going on. Certainly, I couldn't do it for potential customers because they don't have an account inside of our ticketing system. So I went ahead and created an account for Jupiter Broadcasting. I'm going to treat them as if they were a customer. I'm going to close this. So basically, I create an account of a customer, and this doesn't necessarily have to be an active customer. It may be a potential customer, somebody that might be a client in the future, but I want to start kind of feeling him out what's going on. So the first thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to create a contact, and I'm going to say, who is it at this company that I know? Who can I talk to and keep an ongoing dialogue? So that would be probably Chris Fisher, and his job title is CEO, and I'm going to put his phone number in here, and I'm going to save it. And now Chris is a contact, and I can make notes about him, or I can have different kinds of contacts. So maybe the first person that I meet might be the front desk associate. Now, maybe I have her name, and so I can name drop her when I go to talk to the general manager. Hey, by the way, my name's Noah, and I ran into Kylie at the front desk, and she was telling me this is kind of how your operation runs, and this is where we might be able to serve you. That kind of thing. If the more names the more I can kind of slide in there and talk a little bit. And so that helps me kind of get my feet grounded. Now, once I've actually established contact and I want to start actually, again, this is from the perspective of a potential client. I want to start looking at how we can best serve them. I might create a task list. And so here, the first task might be a site survey. I'm going to save that. And so the description of the site survey is, how can we best serve? And so the checklist might be something like check all available network connections. And I might look at physical layout of network. And then all of these are going to get, categorized. It's very granular, and here I have an actual checklist, but then all I see again from the dashboard is just site survey. Or maybe I might go in here and I would say, I met Rakai, Burgers for Rakai, met with video editor at JB, seems very capable and can be bought off with burgers. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then inside here, get burger that he likes, bring burger to studio, let beard stuff face with burger. And again, all of this is tracked under headings. And if one of these is done, site survey is done, I can go ahead and check it off. And now it doesn't delete it. It just lets me know this task has been completed. And again, you envision this, right? If I have multiple people working, if I have one guy going out and doing the sales, and maybe I've got another guy that his job is site deployment. So he's going out there looking at how we can implement the things that we're promising. He can go out and say, okay, the site survey was done. And of course, the entire time we're adding, information as this guy goes out and he does all these things. He's adding a comment, half the network jacks don't work. Stuff like this is all being tracked, and it is built from the idea that these are people that start out as non-customers and may become customers in the future. Now, once they become customers, we have a whole nother, set of tools that we can use to track all of this stuff. I can go in here and I can schedule meetings with these people. And of course, at any time, again, we have this generic comment thing. This is a test. Again, anytime I need to just document something, hey, I ran into this person or I saw this, I can just make a general kind of comment. There is an opportunities window, which is basically like the idea is I might see a potential need, and I haven't necessarily talked them into it yet, but it's a potential thing that I don't want to forget. And Chris and I are really bad about that. We'll have a ton of really good ideas, and then poof, they're gone, like right before we leave, right? And so what the software is allowing me to do is I can walk in and say, hey, you know what? I notice every time I go to this particular business, their printer doesn't work, and so I can make a note and say, printer not working at front desk. And now that again it's filed under a opportunity, and so later I can go back through my leads and inside of Zermo, and it will actually show me. I see. Bring this back up again, and it'll actually show me where all of these, where all of the potential for work is, and it does a couple of things. One is it's going to lead me to more revenue, and at the same time, I think we're serving customers better because we're more accurately able to track their needs. And because it's web-based and because it's running on Linux, it's going to be available to me at scale, not just in Grand Forks, but everywhere. So I think it's going to really allow us to grow. So that's a brief look at what Zermo is doing. I hope you found that helpful. If you want any more information, we're going to have some more information inside of the show notes, as well as a link to manually getting Zermo up and running if you want to use it in production on DigitalOcean, which is what I would recommend. I would highly recommend doing it by hand, not using the scripts. Again, Bitnami is the service that has a pre-done installation script if you just want to try it, and then this is running on a Google Cloud Compute instance. So that's a brief look at Zermo. Hope you found it enjoyable.
Oh, that was really cool. And wait for the out. What did you think of using the Google Cloud Compute service? How did that go?
It's okay. Here's the thing. It's great for testing. It's great for playing with. I would never use it in production.
Oh, really?
Well, so there's a couple things. I don't like the non-existence of a dashboard. Basically, they file everything into what they call projects, but you can't actually see the machine. So, for example, I don't know what operating system my thing is running. I know it's Linux because I can tell that it says Linux kernel or whatever, but I have no idea if it's Ubuntu or if it's Fedora. And I don't actually have access to the machine to go in. If I wanted to, let's say, copy a file out of it or something like that, I can't do that because it's all in this like packaged little project thing. So my impression of it, and it's cost effective. So it's a great way, again, if you want to try something, just play with it. No, I wouldn't even think about using it in production.
So,
in fact, so much so I wouldn't even use it in production long enough to see if it works in production. I moved it over to DigitalOcean before I even got that far in the test.
So you must have been pretty happy to find an open source solution to solve this problem. And it sounds like something you're pretty comfortable recommending to other businesses and maybe even...
100%. And the other thing too, and again, there were certain things I couldn't show because of the demo instance because there's not real information there. But Zermo does this thing. It turns it into a game. So you get badges inside of the CRM. So for example, the first time you make the first time you log a contact in a business, you get a badge. The first time you add a new business, you get a badge. And so it encourages your staff and your team to to play. It turns it almost into like this game where the more people I can make contact with, the more people I can talk to, the more information I can gather, the more my badge number increases, which is a really cool thing. Competition's always kind of cool.
That is it. That's a great way to just sort of make it a little bit more fun for something that sometimes isn't all that fun. And then I guess the other thing that I thought was kind of cool about your review is I hadn't tried out Bitnami, But it sounds like that might be kind of legit.
Bitnami is pretty neat. The thing is, it combines two things I don't like though. It has it's essentially a repository of magic scripts.
Yeah,
right.
But for testing and trying to see if it's a feasible application for your users to use, or for you to use, or to export or import data, this is kind of neat.
Now, I tried Bitnami on Ubuntu 16.04. The script failed. I tried it on 14.04. The script failed. I tried it on CentOS 7. The script failed. I tried it on CentOS 6. The script failed. I tried it on Debian 8. And it worked.
Oh,
so
okay.
there is, and they don't tell you that when you go to download the script. It doesn't say use this particular version of Linux. But I just had to.
So your distance may vary. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Requires additional testing.
Yeah, but looking through, they have a lot of things like WordPress.
Yeah,
and
Ghost is in here.
And I forget the name of the project, but the project OpenFire, the XMPP server, and I set some of those up, and they're quite involved. So to have a little script, again, just for testing or playing with, would be really kind of cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, some of this stuff's already on DigitalOcean if you just go that route, but there's more than that's there, including some nice ones like UTrack.
But again, the thing I really like about the service is that they provide a installation script, so you can take it anywhere.
Yeah, and this is not really related to Zermo. It's just a way to try it. No,
although they do have some sort of blessing from Zermo, because the way I found Bitnami was through the Zermo site. They have it linked. They say if you want to try it, here's a pre-done installation script.
Pretty nice.
So some sort of blessing.
Sounds like a nice win for Altispeed, and a nice check off the box. Does open source have this? That you could throw up on a system pretty easy and try it out and see how it runs. All right, that's the Linux Axe Show's first and likely only look at a CRM. And thank goodness there's a good one that's open source. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. But of course, we do have some feedback, plus we have a poll to follow up on. And then there's a community question that is so important. It's causing listeners to tune out. So we're going to answer that. We're going to tackle it. But first, I want to thank System 76 for making this segment possible. They have great laptops. We talk about these. They have super nice desktops, but they've been on a rampage. Crazy System 76 is so crazy. They're updating all their machines, I swear, it seems like. And the new, now I believe you say it as Lemur. But Lemur. Yeah, I like that. And this is the Lemur, just as fancy as the name. The rig's even fancier. It's got a 7th gen Intel processor, which is totally badass. It's got, of course, the latest graphics from that, and a USB-C, and up to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 bad Mamma Jamma RAM. And this is in a little tiny machine, 14.1 inch display with a 7th gen Intel, and then that you get to say that name all the time, Lemur. Just like that, and that's,
or you could say Lemur.
That's starting at $6.99. The $6.99 for if you do it in US greenbacks, or $62 a month. That's a great deal. You know what? We never talk about. Never talk about for some reason, because I guess
we never talk about.
This is ridiculous too when I think about it, because we maybe like a month ago we mentioned this. But you know what's the most popular OS on the cloud? We just talked about it. It's Ubuntu. And you know who sells Ubuntu servers backed by a company that knows Ubuntu inside and out? System 76. Go check out their servers as well. And tell them the Linux Action should tell them Noah switched you to Linux. System76.com. Thanks, guys. All right, so last couple of weeks, we've been trying to figure out what is a bare bones Linux. And did I get your take on it? Do you define bare bones as X-ray?
What I said, here's what I said. I said that if we have to define what we're talking about. If we're talking about servers or we're talking about desktops, because the answer is totally different. And but we took a poll nonetheless and we asked you, the audience, what do you define as bare bone Linux? Does it include X? Does it not include X? And the results are.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, well, with an absolutely scientific base that people got off their butts and voted, so it's totally relevant. 60% of the audience says that bare bones Linux is defined by them as X-free, and only 40% so they consider bare bones Linux has X. 60% agreed with me. I did not expect that. I thought I was the weird guy that was saying small, tiny bare bones distros were X-free. But I think when I think bare bones, I think of a bare bones Linux installation that's like maybe a package manager and a couple of other things. Maybe a package manager. So that's why I didn't really think X was involved. But then again, I know a bunch of great tiny ones out there. So yeah, I feel vindicated. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to celebrate after the show with a celebratory pizza or a celebratory burger. I don't know yet. All right, so I'll take on Corey's. Hey, speaking of System 76, he's got a question about System 76 and similar Clevo models. He says, would I be able to use the System 76 PPA on a more generic Clevo laptop with the same model that, say, the Oryx Pro is based on? I had an opportunity to purchase a secondhand one, and I'm not quite sure if I can get everything working under Ubuntu 16.10. And he gives the model. Now, do you happen to have an answer to this? Because I have speculation.
I do. I have almost a definitive answer. My understanding is the answer to that question is no. You could try it, and there might be certain things that will work, but System 76, yeah, they swap out hardware components. They literally open up and resolder things sometimes to disable things or re-enable things or make other things work. They flash different firmware on it to make so certain things that aren't controlled by the driver. So you might get some functionality out of it. It might work out of the box, but I guess my answer would be it's probably no different than going into Best Buy and buying a laptop at that point.
Yeah, there's
probably
enough every time, and it's. And generally, the way they make their modifications, so I've got two bonobos here, and these both had different modifications done to them from the stock OEM hardware. System 76 does assemble these machines and modifies them themselves. They don't arrive pre-assembled and out of the box. Right. They customize them and build them, and both of these had some slight modifications to essentially avoid all of the problems with split graphics that were just when these models were being brand new were just an absolute nightmare, and we're only now starting to get better, really. And that the image they have on their BIOS and the way they write the driver for the PPA assumes probably those modifications, I would think. But the way they did those modifications, I've never actually. I very rarely these days install the PPA. I generally will on a brand new system. It is also, I believe, in the AUR if you're on Arch. But both of these systems no longer, I don't even bother with the PPA. This is running Ubuntu Mate Edition 16.10, and I don't even bother with that anymore. The box. Yeah, it just works. So that's you
could give it a shot. It just again, there's no guarantee.
Yeah,
it's kind of hit or miss.
All right, you got LJ.
So yeah, LJ writes in and he has a question about Ubuntu 16.04, 16.10, and he says regarding the Wi-Fi problems that you are facing in 16.04 and probably 16.10, please check the instructions in the script attached. It may be a dirty solution, but in the end, it works and it's completely transparent to the user. Kind regards, LJ. Now, last week, we did a review of Ubuntu 16.10, and I had a horrible time with 16.10, and Chris had a amazing time with 16.10. And so the question was brought, maybe it's because I needed to do a clean install.
Yeah, you did an upgrade to 16.10 from 16.04.
From 16.04. And so I wiped my entire laptop. I spent hours. I mean, I didn't get done till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, backing all my stuff up and reinstall my operating system from scratch. And for the first, I'd say 4 or 5 days, things were pretty good. I had one total system lockup weird issue where when it would come out of standby, I couldn't type in my password. And then after I was able to log in, I was watching Netflix and the whole thing just locked up. And that was kind of frustrating. And I kind of wrote that off.
Sounds like maybe video drivers.
Maybe, but it's Intel integrated. I mean, how do you screw that up? And then Thursday-ish, I had my first Wi-Fi problem, and I actually told Chris, he goes, bring this up on the air. And I said, I will, but I think I'm going to cut him some slack because maybe it was just a one-off thing. It didn't do that thing where Wi-Fi totally vanished. It just disabled Wi-Fi, and I just clicked on enable, and then I was back in business. But then Friday and then Saturday, it totally died. And now I'm back to, I bring it out of standby one every 3 or 4 times, and I just don't have Wi-Fi.
This is on a Lenovo?
This is on, this is on an X240. This is on an X250. This is on a Dell Precision 6400, and it's on a Dell Latitude E5340. All 4 of those computers have the exact same problem, but only in Ubuntu 16.04 or higher. Worked perfectly fine in 14.04, worked perfectly fine in Fedora, works perfectly fine in Arch. It's just, and so I don't know.
So we're going to attempt to embed his resume script. It's a systemd unit. We're going to attempt to put this in the show notes and see if it renders properly so people can use this hack if they want.
Yeah, however, I think it is frustrating that there are still people on Ask Ubuntu that are reporting these problems in 16.10, and now there is this script that seems to be accepted by people is this is the way that you fix wireless. We shouldn't have to fix wireless in an operating system, for crying out loud. It's 2016. That's a very important aspect that needs to work out of the box, you guys.
I still haven't had a problem.
Yeah. But I'm not alone, though. There's other people.
I believe you.
apparently
I believe you. I have been there when I'm the one having the problem and nobody else has had it. It's super frustrating. Welcome to most of my life, actually.
Welcome to your life on Android.
Here's where I wanted to respond to this because I think maybe you and I talked about it off air, and I know we talked about it on air once, but didn't really think it was worth mentioning. But let's see here. It's on the subreddit. Yeah, linuxactionshow.reddit.com is where this was submitted. And Nothing But the Rain wrote in and said, Noah, man, are you getting enough sleep? You seem like you're super salty. And I don't know, maybe that's like code for, I don't know what salty is quite code for, but I don't think it's good.
It means angry.
And I would call aggressively contrarian in the past couple of shows among the ones I listened to, Linux Unplugged, LAS, and User Air. Is it just me or is anyone else feeling it? Virtual hug sent your way. And then the thread kind of devolves where it's actually my fault. Natterton says that it's actually Chris's fault, and Noah's just reacting to the bad tone that I set for the show. And then Vigor says that he has to stop listening to the show because I get into my head of the show mode and I cut you off too much. So I thought maybe we should address this on air because, at first I thought there was nothing, but now we have 13 people that have jumped in. They seem to be concerned about maybe you and I fighting or when I cut you off.
So back in December of last year, we talked about how we could improve the show. And one of the things that Chris has been trying to move towards is more discussion and having more discussion. And that was one of the things that transitioned from my predecessor, Matt, over to myself. Was one of the things that I differ with him is that I am okay speaking up. And that manifests itself in a couple of different ways. But one of the things that I try to keep a firm hat on is that Chris has spent the last 10 years of his life building up a network. And so due respect to him, it's his show. When he wants to say something, it's his job to say something, and it's my job to support him in a supportive role. And so back in December, Chris and I had a conversation. He said, listen, I'd really like you to speak up a little bit more because I'd really like to have some discussion. And that might mean that both of us take a polarizing view, and we're going to go back and forth a little bit. But I think that would make for better show content. And so starting at the beginning of this year, when something comes up, if I don't agree with them, we go back and forth until Chris decides it's time to move on. And the other thing is, I have a handicap. I am not a podcaster. I'm a support technician. I'm an IT administrator, and I have been fortunate enough to come into this role to share my views on technology with you. But I'm not born a broadcaster, and so one of my handicaps is I can't formulate thoughts as well as somebody that's been doing this for 10 years, and I also don't have the ability to look at what I'm saying and decide when it's time for me to cut myself off. And so you have to understand that this is a symbiotic relationship where I am going to provide Chris with a certain amount of resistance so that he doesn't just run off. And if I think he's wrong, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to put my foot down, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to go back and forth. And at the same time, when Chris's 10 years of broadcasting experience tells him this is enough of talking about this topic, or this is enough of Noah talking, we need to move on, then he's going to put his foot down and we're going to move on. And I think the best thing that the only real way I could think to exemplify this would really be is if we were to take a Telegram conversation that Chris and I have throughout the week, and then you could see that, because I when you just see us for 2 hours on Sunday, that gives you a very different view of our relationship and our friendship as it would if you just saw us the rest of the week. In fact, I think the last episode that we really kind of blew up was the Cody thing, right? And I think right after that, like we had I meant to bring it up and talk to you about it after we were off the air, and then we divulged into a bunch of other conversation. It wasn't until like the next day that I actually got around to being like, oh yeah, by the way, Cody, did I push that too far? Like it took a day or so. But
yeah,
yes.
And also if you're watching live, a lot of times after we end the segment, we'll pick the conversation back up. Like we did pick that Cody conversation back up for a bit. So I think people who watch live get a better sense of that, or the patrons that watch the full live recording that we release. I think they kind of have a different perspective. But I think both of us don't take it personally. We look at it as sort of, we're here to give you both sides of an opinion, and we're going to try to articulate them as well as we can. And I think it's in the hope and the interest of making it more interesting and intellectually stimulating than if we just agreed on everything all the time. However, essentially whenever we're talking about anything like this very topic, I have a clock running in my head. And when the clock runs out, it's like, okay, it's time to move on. I don't think we're really progressing. Let's move forward. And there's not like, it's not afterwards. We're not seething at each other. And if there's no hard feelings, we just move on to the next thing. It's because that's what we're here to do. We're here to do that. And we're here to do it as passionately as we really feel about it.
And don't get me wrong, there are times, there have been things where I do hit a limit, where Chris asks me or Chris wants to move in a direction that I'm like, so just so you know, this is I'm not totally happy about that, and that we basically kind of started to approach that just a month ago. We were talking about how we were going to change the broadcasting system. The video
if you want better insight to this, listening to probably the 6 episodes or 7 episodes of User Error. I know they're not very long, and they're actually it's all time coded too. So you could just jump around if you want. Where we kind of have talked about, we've kind of pulled the curtain back and said, well, let's talk about this time where we had this big issue and how that played out. And I think it gives you a better insight of how it works.
The important thing to pull out of there, though, is if there's something that really bothers me, if there's something I'm upset about, believe me, people hear about it.
I think they've noticed, and I think it's actually been a good thing because even if it's something that sometimes the audience is like, oh, whatever. I think for us to sort of clearly state where we stand on certain different topics gives the audience a better idea of how we comment on other things in the future. So I think it all serves a purpose.
And if we both agreed on everything, one of us would be unnecessary.
So guess what? Send us in your thoughts and your feedback. You can do it at that subreddit, or you can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. Pow! You didn't see that coming. You did? Okay, well, did you know I'm going to mention the live time over at jblive.tv on Sundays at noon Pacific, or jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, where it gets converted to your own time? Did you know that? You did? All right. Oh, I bet they don't know where they can find Noah online on Twitter. Where can they find you, Noah?
At Kernel Linux, and you can follow the company at Altispeed, that's my personal company, or Jupiter Broadcasting at Jupiter Signal, or that guy at Chris LAS. That's right below on our lower thirds. It's not really a lower third.
Oh, shoot. So they did know that was coming. Man, I am striking out.
It's been under your nose the entire time.
I thought it itched. I just thought that was my mustache.
Oh. No, that's your Twitter handle, dude.
Oh, you're right. You're right. See, that's the problem. That's
what happens.
I know. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
Can be great. Oh, they're not so bad because we got open standards, so they're secure.
Yes.
Wait a minute, they're attacking the U.S. on your Internet of Things. Guess how many of my Internet of Things went down? 0, because I don't have any.
All right, now, okay, so I got a couple of thoughts on this. I'm glad you brought this up. I think this is an important conversation. I would like to say thank you to the chat room for having us today, and boy, isn't this an interesting day for America. Friends, what you've just heard here from Noah is the stance where he was waiting for the facts to meet his case to pounce. But listen, the truth of the matter is, it's my time, right? Yeah. The truth of the matter is, it was all of these unpatched Internet of Things devices, like the old pieces of crap Noah runs that doesn't install updates on, that were infected, that were used.
No pieces of crap. You're a piece of crap. No pieces of crap. No pieces of crap.
Oh, chat room, go get caught up on your user error. I would probably.
Hey,
Noah.
Here comes the. Hey,
Noah?
what?
Hey.
Sorry.
Yeah. Try to talk about what failed. Okay, I'll try to do that too. Hey, Noah.
Hello.
Hey, Noah.
Hello.
All right, Noah, quit screwing around.
The problem is, the pooper does not. At least so there are 2 poopers in the studio. Actually, there are 3. There are 2 poopers in the studio that we're going to talk about. The first pooper is a Chris exclusive. That pooper is inside of the studio, and for obvious reasons, nobody is allowed to use it, because if Chris has to go on air and you have to be in the studio, you don't want to sit in the studio and smell other people's poop. So that pooper is off limits. So that leaves us with 1 remaining pooper. There's actually 2, but one's are nice. So that leaves us with 1 remaining pooper in the living room area. The problem with that pooper is it's kind of like, if you've ever had a drippy faucet, that's kind of what happens when you push the flusher. It's just like, and then nothing happens. So basically what you have to do is you have to, like, anytime any sort of
anything. anything.
deposit is made in the
Actually,
in
I've
the
tested it. I've actually tested it. I've actually been able to get it to clog just on an empty bowl, just when testing.
Really? That does not surprise me.
Yeah, I think it just fails to flush sometimes. So these ones are real fun. These are a real pleasure to flush. So everyone say good job, Andrews, on getting new shitters in the chat room because I've been struggling with these sons of bitches for like 3 or 4 months now. It's just been the one in the master bedroom's been breaking down. It's been leaking water, costing us a lot in water.
The reserve pooper, that one?
My private pooper, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. That one's perfect. So both of them got replaced.
Yeah.
The one doesn't affect me, but the one in the living room had
The only one that ever worked was the one that only Rikai, the Rikai's private toilet. That's the only one that ever worked properly.
You know what? I've never even seen his bathroom. Much less been in it. Much less used it.
Oh, you could. You could probably go in there and get a beard shower. All right, well. Yeah, they're not connected to the internet,
Do
no.
you mean shower in Beard's bathroom, or do you mean get showered in Beard?
Well, I would imagine one and the same, my friend.
First and likely. Look.
What?
I love it. You have like little isms about like if you don't like something, it's very clear. That is the Linux action shows first and likely only. Look.
I just want to give shout out to the people who are like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. I'm like, don't worry, we'll just talk about it maybe once.